Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hope everyone's having a fantastic day and a fantastic week. I'm back for another little webisode for the Hunt for the Lord series, and this one is about perfectly timed. Right now in the whitetail woods across most of the Midwest and a good portion of the country, we have the rut going on, which for those of you that don't know, that's a peak breeding season for whitetail deer. So a lot of nice bucks are harvested this time of year. They're out messing around a lot more. They reveal themselves more. Deer that have traditionally been nocturnal are more likely to be on their feet, looking for love, looking to breed and things. And my verse today, or verses actually, comes from Proverbs Chapter 7. And it's verses 21 through 23. So I'll start with 21. With persuasive words, she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk. All at once, he followed her like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose, till an arrow pierces his liver, like a bird darting into a snare, little knowing it will cost him his life. I read that a while back, and I thought, isn't that just like deer hunting? Isn't that just what leads to my success and to many, many hunters' success, is seducing and fooling these bucks, or preying upon their lusts and setting up upon travel corridors where you know that they will be heading to bedding areas where female deer are at, and moving around at times of the day when they normally wouldn't, showing themselves when they normally wouldn't, letting their guard down, having their focus wrong. And I thought, and I'm going to do kind of an interactive illustration of this today. But I thought to myself, isn't, not only is that how, I've been able to capitalize on taking most of the bucks that I've harvested in my life over the, short 20 years that I've been doing it, has been preying upon that lust, like, setting up a noose, basically, a snare, until the arrow pierces his liver. I've got most of my bucks preying upon those desires, but then I thought, that's how the devil gets most of us men, just as it is there, through an adulteress, through unhealthy lusts and things. And there are many arrows that have went through many livers of men, metaphorically, due to unhealthy lusts and pursuits. And we won't get into all that, but just to, name a few, addictions, divorces, broken homes, unplanned pregnancies that lead to a fatherless home. That's been an epidemic in our country and things, all by thinking the wrong way, not thinking in the Lord's terms and covenant, but thinking in lustful terms. So just to kind of break down how that really happens, I'm going to kind of just do an interactive illustration here. Now, none of this is to brag on anything I've done. It's just to prove an illustrative point. So I'm going to kind of take you through the house and show you a number of bucks that I've had the privilege and opportunity to harvest in my time hunting. And you're going to see that most of them came because the buck had his guard down, or was thinking the wrong way, or was somewhere he shouldn't have been, thinking in lustful terms, trying to breed, right? And ended up being caught and taken. So, I'll start with this guy here. That's one I got number of years ago. He had left a lot of sign behind. He was, setting up territory, being very prideful, which how many of us men have gotten caught in traps, being very prideful, being very haughty, trying to set up territory, things like that. That's what he was doing. Gave himself away. I set up. He was moving at a time of day he shouldn't have been moving and normally wouldn't have been moving, but he was being aggressive, trying to check all that sign to see if any ladies had come by or to see if a challenger was there. Here's another one I got a number of years ago. He was moving downwind of a bedding area where does were, moving at a time of day he should not have been moving. I should not have been able to catch him when I did, and under normal circumstances, I wouldn't have been able to, but he let his guard down. Another one here, saw a doe. That was actually my first deer I ever got. Saw a doe. Actually, I was sitting with my dad, and he had a grunt tube with him, made a grunt call at that doe, and he was in the shadows up the hill watching her. And when he heard that grunt call, he come charging down the hill, being very territorial and possessive, and then he just let himself right into a trap. So we'll go to another few. Like I said, guys, this isn't in any means bragging, saying, look at me, look at what I've done. It's just to illustrate the point. And then I want to tie this together to say, okay, as men, practically, what kind of traps are we leading ourselves into? So here's another one here. Once again, just at a time of day. He shouldn't have been out moving between two bedding areas. I caught him thinking the wrong way. Another one here. That one there, he was hiding in the shadows. I had seen a couple does come by. And probably 15, 20 minutes later, I heard a lot of grunting, a lot of, smacking trees and things. And it was him. He was on the trail of those does. And so he comes down, and I saw him there, hit my grunt tube a couple of times. He went clear out of his way to come right in front of me, thinking he was being prideful, thinking he was going to win a fight, and he was being territorial, wanted to lay claim over those ladies that were in his area. And he just messed up, gave me a shot. Here's one here I got after Election Day in 2016. That's why the MAGA hat's there. He was several hundred yards away. I had no business getting this deer with a bow. No business. Had a grunt tube, blew the grunt tube. It's the right time of year. He diverted off path and came from at least 200 yards away and came right to my tree. Probably it took him about, a matter of 15 minutes navigating through there, checking the wind. He got right to my tree. He had no business coming over where he did, but I got him thinking the wrong way. He let his guard down, and the wrong things were on his mind. Another one here, a little bit smaller guy. He was consistently prideful, marking territory. He was consistently visiting a certain set of a rub line he had made, and he had made a couple scrapes, and he was visiting that over and over and over. He just made it too easy for me, too easy. Just knew where he was at by virtue of him doing that over and over and over, letting his guard down, thinking the wrong way. And sure enough, early afternoon, he popped out, and I was able to harvest that deer. Another one here, this guy, he was, I got him afternoon, after 12 p.m., but knowing the time of year and knowing where I was at, I was between two bedding areas where, female deer would be concentrated. So I hung around, and sure enough, just afternoon, he was walking out of one and heading to another with his nose in the wind. By most times of the year, that deer would have already been bedded down. He wouldn't have even been on his feet that time, but he let his guard down. He was thinking, about different things. He wanted the ladies, and I was able to capitalize on that deer's lust for that. This one here also was one that I had gotten and did not find till a number of weeks later. That's why his rack was chewed up. I literally had an arrow to the liver there with fixed blade broadhead, which after that I quit using them, and my harvest rates went through the roof and things. But anyway, that was a deer that I had some deer scents, incense sticks burning, like sexual attractant, and I also had a grunt tube, blew it. He threw his head in the wind, picked up that scent, heard that noise, came charging up the hill to me, gave me a shot, and he literally, just like Proverbs 7:22, he literally got an arrow to his liver right there and perished. This guy here, doing a similar thing as the previous two. He was at noon right at noon, moving right between two bedding areas. Under normal circumstances, he would have been bedded down, but he was up trying to pursue the ladies and get after it that way. This one here, I had hunted all day. I had been hunting all day long. Been out there, I don't believe I'd even seen a deer up until close to 5 o'clock when he showed up. He was heading the opposite direction. He'd come down a ridge opposite of me, heading the opposite direction. I had one of those Primos can calls, which sounds like a doe bleeding that is ready to breed, trying to bring a buck to her. Hit that, whoop, he threw on the brakes, made a big circle, big J hook, and come right to me. Just made it too easy. This guy here, he was heading in between two bedding areas. I had some incense sticks burning that was a sexual attractant. He came literally right to it. I mean, he walked right into my lap right there. Just made it way too easy, and it was right at that right time of year. Under other circumstances, he probably wouldn't have walked right there and gave me that kind of shot, but he was preoccupied and distracted by that. This little 4-point here, that was the second deer I ever got. I was hunting with my dad at the time, and he was moving in opposite direction, close to a couple 100 yards away, and my dad actually had one of those Primos can calls. He hit that once, and that deer threw on the brakes and came literally, right to our tree. He was making a beeline to our tree when I had shot him. This guy here, one of the bigger deer that I'd ever killed, especially body-wise, real heavy. I got that deer in the middle of muzzleloader season. There was 1 week left, and he was chasing does. He was going nuts with it. And an hour and a half before I actually got him, he had slipped by me. He'd gotten away clean. He was chasing some does. He made a scrape, made a licking branch, everything else, and it pursued does into a valley opposite of me, and I couldn't see them. It was way too thick, and they disappeared. An hour and a half later, 2 does come walking out in front of me, and they were acting real weird. They weren't acting normal. They were acting kind of spooked, looking over their shoulder. And he showed back up, and he was pursuing them, not paying any attention to me, nothing else, had his mind fixed on them. I never should have been able to get this deer. Never should have. Preoccupied, distracted, and, once again, he made it too easy for me because his mind was in a completely different place than what it normally is the rest of the year. And then this guy here, very similar thing. A little earlier in gun season, I think it was opening weekend. It was like that Sunday or something. I saw a nice big group of does coming by me and things and filtering down past me, and then I heard very loud grunting. It was really loud. Felt like I could have heard it a mile away, and then sure enough, I saw him emerge, and he just kept bumping and following does, and all those does kept wanting to go by me to go somewhere else to a different bedding area down the creek, and he just kept pursuing them, and he walked right into a shooting window that I had. Met his demise that way. And then finally, we have this guy here that I got last year. I had seen him roughly about an hour or so before I actually had the opportunity to shoot him. He was pursuing a doe, and I don't think she was ready yet. He was, she wasn't. He had bumped her into a thicket and things, and then, obviously just probably got kicked away or just realized that it wasn't going to work. She wasn't ready yet. So he popped back out of the thicket an hour later, mouth hung open, just ready to breed or fight, right? He was just like a wild young man, really. And I had a grunt tube with me, blew that grunt tube twice. He hooked and circled and came right to my tree, walked right underneath me and right out the side, and I stalked him and was able to get him. So as you can see, that's all the bucks, that we see in here and in there that I've had the privilege to take in my life. I've got another one that's getting Euro mounted that I got this year, which he, by the way, He come out of a pine thicket downwind of some incense sticks I was burning. He kept checking the wind and was walking right to where I had that burning. Sexual attractant. So, he is also a victim, so to speak, that's added to the list. So, the overwhelming majority of deer that I have been able to get that have been bucks over time have been because they have been seduced. They've been, thinking with the opposite side of their brain. You know what I'm talking about? Like the old saying goes, thinking with the wrong head. That's how I was able to get most of my deer. And as I continue hunting throughout my life, that's how I'll get most of the bucks I get. And that's how most hunters do connect, that hunt on a consistent basis, is, bucks being distracted and letting their guard down. So you may think, well, how does that relate to us? Well, as the verse says, 21 through 23, talking about following the adulteress, and also look at that in expanded view, following lustful desires and lusts of the heart and things. And I'm really mainly talking to men here, but this can and absolutely does apply to ladies as well. But, man, how many times have, we been at the wrong place and wrong time and had bad things happen to us because we let our guard down because we were following a lust, right? And the enemy, the devil, has got a full quiver of arrows, and he cannot wait to put them in your liver, and he cannot wait to put you on his wall of shame. And how he does that, he gets you distracted, he gets you thinking about the wrong things, letting your guard down, and rather than seeking first the kingdom of heaven, we're seeking lustful desires, and that is how the enemy afflicts us. And the results of that affliction can be innumerable. We can have unhealthy addictions. We can have divorces, broken homes, fatherless homes, sexually transmitted diseases, emotional damage and wounds, ungodly soul ties, and demonic torment that follows that. The list is innumerable about how that arrow to the liver affects us. But the bottom line is we need to seek first the kingdom of heaven and not our own lustful desires, lest we end up on Satan's wall of shame. And now some of you, may be thinking, well, that's a great word, Josh. I'll never follow an adulteress. I'll never physically cheat on my wife or anything. Never have, never will. That's great. So let's check your internet search history too. Yeah. Oh yeah. An adulteress is more than just a physical relationship. One of the worst and most wicked and vile adulteresses in this world right now is digital in the form of pornography. Jesus himself said, if you look at another woman lustfully, just simply looking in a lustful manner, you in your heart have committed adultery. For those that in that day that were wanting to get technical about divorces and adultery and things, he's saying, hey, man, if you're just looking at women lustfully, in your heart, you're committing adultery. There's a lot of adultery committed in the world today that's not even physical. It's all digital. And, we as men need not follow that temptress either. Because I'm going to tell you guys, that's a horrible, wicked, and vile addiction to have that's not talked about enough in the church today. There's more and more of it being talked about and warred against. But as men, godly men fighting that and trying to help our young guys out and trying to preserve marriages and raise men up so that we can bless women and children, we got to keep fighting against it. We got to fight against the industry. We got to keep our guys clean. We got to keep our, desires and pursuits focused on the Lord and his will. But that is one of the biggest adulteresses today. So for somebody that thinks, I don't cheat on my wife, well, if you're looking at pornography, you are committing adultery. You absolutely are. You're looking at other women or things lustfully, and in your heart, you're committing adultery to your wife. Men and women, we have to remain sexually pure. We are, by God's design, reserved for our spouses. Anything outside of that is sexual immorality that taints us, and we will not see the kingdom of heaven, as the Apostle Paul said. those that are sexually immoral on an unrepentant and consistent basis are not going to see the kingdom of heaven. So we need to repent from that. So that's kind of the conclusion of my message today, a little bit shorter than some of my other ones, but just know that's how that ties into hunting there. Most bucks, most nice male deer meet their demise by lustful desires, and we as hunters capitalize on it by virtue of either how we set up strategically or certain attractants, scents, and calls that we use. And the devil does the same thing to us and afflicts us as physical men by trapping us, getting us thinking about the wrong things and pursuing lustful desires. And we get an arrow to the liver and end up on his wall of shame. The good news is there is redemption through the blood of Jesus Christ and through his sacrifice on the cross at Calvary, and through our repentance and bringing our sin to him. He can redeem us of any one of those sexual sins, any one of those lusts, any one of those desires, and he can transform our hearts and minds and free us from that wall of shame. But until we do that, and if we're giving in to our lustful desires and pursuits, Satan's got a whole quiver of arrows he's going to stick us with, and he's going to keep us on his wall of shame. So we have got to call out to Jesus to get us off that wall of shame and to keep us pure forever until the day of Christ. That's all I've got, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Hope this was a helpful message. God bless, and have a great rest of your week.